What is the stupidest way you've heard someone die? A few years back, some guy tried to unalive his girlfriend by parking the car on the tracks and jumping out of the car. The train came and hit the car. Car spins around and hits the guy. Guy dies, girl survives. Oof, that is some quick karma. Sorry, am I supposed to be doing puns for this? Next story. Steve Jobs had a very treatable form of cancer but decided to try and cure it with an all-fruit diet. Literally, all he had to do was go to the doctor when it was discovered and his chances of survival would have been quite good. Edit. He had a pancreatic cancer called insulinoma, which is curable with surgery. Next story. I saw one on YouTube of this guy who had to do community service after some small crime he did, but he didn't want to do that, of course, so his brilliant idea of how to get out of it was tying 2 pillows to his back, and his friend shot him in the back, thinking the pillows would protect him just enough to where he would get injured but not life-threatening. Yeah, he died, and his friend was charged with murder, LMAO. Next story. Gary Hoy, January 28, 1954 to July 9, 1993, was a Canadian lawyer who died when he fell from the 24th floor from his office building at the Toronto Dominion Centre in Toronto, Ontario. In an attempt to prove to a group of prospective articling students that the building's glass windows were unbreakable, he threw himself against the glass. The glass did not break when he hit it, but the window frame gave way and Hoy fell to his death. Okay, well, you know what, I'm sure you guys knew what you were getting into when you clicked onto the video, but I'm getting the vibe these aren't going to be feel-good stories. And I don't know if it's easier for me to take itself seriously and make myself sad, or try and make jokes and pretend it's not real. It's just accidental deaths are really bumming me out. I mean, all death bums me out, but you know what I mean. We'll feel it out together. Next story. A few weeks ago at my nearby amusement park, a man dropped his keys on a roller coaster. The worker said they could find them for him when the park closed. Well, that wasn't good enough for him, I guess, so he proceeded to climb over several fences with tons of signs saying, "Danger, do not enter," to try and get his keys, and was immediately hit by the coaster. Next story. A girl a few towns over was mooning a train, but was a little too close, and the train spanked her into the afterlife. I think it broke her spine and she died on impact or pretty quick, but I feel bad for the parents having to explain to people the embarrassing cause while also going through that grief. She was 16 or 17. Next story. Kid at my high school died because him and his friends were taking turns hitting each other in the head with a skateboard. They just kept hitting each other harder and harder until they reached the too hard point and killed the kid. I did grow up in the time of jackpot, but I'll never understand this one. Next story. The husband of a friend of mine died by drowning at the beach. He was having an affair and skipped work to spend the day with his side chick. She could swim, well, he couldn't. They went to a local beach famous for its jetty that people love to jump off, despite all the warnings not to. He jumped and sank like a stone. His wife was unaware that he had been having an affair. The unbearable weight of guilt, I suppose. Also, I don't think all the warnings not to are even the problem. It's just, don't jump into the water if you can't swim. Next story. I suspect my Nana accidentally poisoned herself with essential oils. She was always very fit and healthy, but as she got older and started getting into these weird and kind of obnoxious health fads, one of them was essential oils, which a friend got her into. She was only in her early 70s when she died. About a year before her death, she started to get a lot of symptoms like headaches and itchy skin, but the doctors couldn't pinpoint why. Then one day she got what everyone thought was a flu, but then she deteriorated rapidly. She went into the hospital and was basically told, "You're dying and we don't know why." They couldn't do anything to stop it. Their plan was essentially let her die, then do an autopsy and maybe learn why. Her body just shut down over the next week. I live out of town but came to be by her side along with my family for her death. After she died, everyone was back at my grandparents' house supporting my granddad. I noticed a bottle of eucalyptus oil in the kitchen next to the tea and coffee. Eucalyptus oil is poisonous to consume. I knew this because I'd recently gone down an online rabbit hole of MLMs and specifically people literally poisoning themselves and their families with essential oils. I mentioned it to my granddad and the oil definitely wasn't his. Unfortunately, by that point, it was too late, as the autopsy had already been done. Apparently, to check for poisons, they have to test for specific things, which they only do if they suspect a specific poison. We'll never know for sure, but I'm convinced. Oh, my heart. I don't like it. Side note though, I hear a lot of people talk about essential oils. What is the consensus on them, if we can sort of get one in the comments? People that have tried them, people that use them. Do you feel a healthy benefit? Do you feel like it adds to your life? I hear a lot of people claim placebo, but some people swear by them. I'm fascinated. Next story. A woman I know was running late for a party and decided that it would be better for her to wear open-toed shoes, but her nails weren't painted. So she started painting them while driving. Somehow she was successful in painting her left foot but pulled the right one up and couldn't get it back down in time and couldn't turn the wheel, so she ran into the vehicle in front of her. Next story. A man who brought a knife-wielding rooster to an illegal fight has died in India after the bird slashed his groin with its attached ankle blade. The incident happened late last month in Lathanur, a village in the state of Telangana, according to local police inspector B. Jivan. Thangula Satish, 45, was preparing his rooster for the fight when it panicked and lashed out with a 3-inch knife he'd tied to its leg. Satish was hit by the rooster's knife in his groin and started bleeding heavily, Jivan said. Satish died on the way to the hospital. The rooster was taken into custody and is being kept at a local farm, Jivan said. We may need to produce it before the court, he said. I just imagine him in the afterlife when anyone asks, "What happened to you?" And he's just like, "I don't want to talk about it." Next story. I remember reading about a chemistry student who was in the habit of dipping his chewing gum in citric acid from the chemical store when it ran out of flavor. One day, however, he absent-mindedly picked up a bottle of something else, dipped his gum, and chewed, which blew his jaw off and killed him. It may have been nitric acid, which reacted violently with a tooth filling, but I don't think the chemical has ever been properly identified. Next story. A friend of mine was the keyboard player for a popular Doors cover band in New Jersey in the 80s. The band had a Halloween party on the Circle Line Ferry, and my friend dressed up as a bride while his fiancé dressed up like a groom. There was a lot of drinking and probably drugs involved, and my friend tried doing a handstand on the railing of the ship. He fell over. His body was found several days later. I wasn't there to see it, fortunately. His sister told me how it happened. Next story. What do you do when you're a drunk college student at a fraternity party and decide to shove a beer bottle up your butt only to discover you can't get it back out? Well, one chemistry major did exactly that, and rather than going to the ER to have it surgically removed, he decided he was simply going to dissolve it. There's only one chemical that can dissolve glass, hydrogen fluoride, HF. And HF is extremely nightmarishly toxic through all means of exposure. So this guy obtains some lab-grade HF and an enema bottle. He proceeds to pump HF up his butt. He actually succeeded in dissolving the bottle, but gave himself a bad case of HF poisoning in the process. End result? Severe hypocalcemia, leading to cardiac arrest and death. Next story. That dumb female dog, Ashley Babbitt, who left her 3 children at home, wrapped herself in a Trump flag, stormed the Capitol, broke through the glass on the final door separating members of Congress from an angry mob, and then tried to climb through despite the fact that there was Capitol police officers with a gun pointed at her and ordering her to stop or they would fire. She kept going and was then promptly shot. Next story. This was a long time ago, but basically a Darwin Award for a guy who lost his hat while riding a roller coaster at a Six Flags park. The roller coaster was the kind where the seats are hanging down from above. The coaster was surrounded by chain link and had many signs warning people. So this guy loses his hat on the ride and climbs over the fence while the coaster was in action. It came very close to the ground at way over 100 miles per hour. So what happened to this guy's hat was similar to what happens if you hit a watermelon with a sledgehammer. For a hat, well, he didn't need it after that. Next story. An older man in Florida wanted to show people how harmless high winds were. Big production on the local station. Storm comes in. Smaller one with 80 to 90 miles per hour winds with him tied to a concrete post. He was right. Almost zero wind damage. No post of an interview because a road sign cut him almost in half. This was posted as the truth, but I can't locate any reference. I don't want to believe you. Next story. Had a young apprentice who always hooked his striker on the ring on his safety belt. We told him numerous times that he could hurt himself if he accidentally hawked onto it when tying off up high. Well, he did, and fell off a wall 1 floor up and cracked his head open when he landed. He died that day. He was like 20 years old. Very stupid and totally preventable. Next story. A real story that happened last year. A burglar broke into the pharmacy/drugstore at night to steal money from the cash register, tripped an alarm, panicked, tried to get out by climbing over glass shelves, broke them, and fell down, cutting his femoral artery. Very unlucky. He bled out to death in minutes before the police arrived to check the tripped burglar alarm, all caught on CCTV. Yes, he bled out in the middle of an effing pharmacy with dozens of tourniquets and first aid kits literally in hand's reach. And the amount of money stolen from said cash register? About $8. Next story. Ooh, I have one. My step-brother-in-law was in his early to mid-60s or so. Wanted to cut down or trim a tree on his yard, had people lined up to help him. Was impatient, decided to just do it himself. Somehow, either a huge branch or the whole dang tree, secondhand knowledge, I don't have all the gory deets, it fell on him. He was face down and the tree compressed his chest. He couldn't get out, couldn't breathe, smothered to death. If only he'd waited for the helpers who just hadn't shown up yet. Or, shelled out for a professional tree service, completely avoidable, but he was cheap and impatient. Next story. My personal favorite. I think it was in an episode of 1000 Ways to Die. So who knows if it's real or not. And if it isn't, don't let me know. I want to let this live on as truth in my mind as long as possible. Anyway, guy goes out in the woods to take mushrooms by himself. He's wandering the woods at night and comes across a bunch of furries effing in the woods and tries to join in on the fun. Well, they immediately kick him the F out, so he wanders for a bit and decides he's going to give it another try. So he wanders back in and starts rubbing up on one of them, only to find out that it's an actual bear. The bear decided to kill and eat him. I don't care if they made this crap up and told it as truth, this is my all-time favorite stupid death. I mean, I'm reading this thread and there's lots of dumb ways to die, but dying trying to F a bear can live rent-free in my head for the rest of my life. Next story. This ex-military woman got shot in the neck by Capitol Security because she believed a known con man claiming the election was stolen and decided to storm the Capitol building, broke inside, then broke a window next to a barricaded door, and tried to climb through after being warned she would get shot. No, I will not say the traitor's name. Next story. The road between my town and the next is 4 lanes, but not a limited access highway. Speed limit 45. Most people do higher. 55 is typical. The 19-year-old who lived down the street was going an estimated 140 miles per hour in his late model Camaro when he left the road, struck an embankment, was airborne for an improbable distance, struck a car and another embankment, and flew another improbable distance, hit another car, a couple trees, rolled a few times, and hit a house. He was in a coma for weeks and did not survive. Next story. Well, this is fairly recent, and while it's sad, it's also dumb. We had a fatal crash a couple of weeks ago, another side of the city, where a car hit an e-scooter on the zebra crossing. If I remember correctly, the deceased was a 12-year-old girl who was riding that scooter with 2 of her friends, so yeah, 3 kids on one single scooter, and while the cops have said little about it, they revealed that the kids might have turned suddenly to the crossing in front of the driver, but nobody's very sure yet. Next story. About 20 years ago on a business trip to Phoenix, I got caught in a terrible traffic jam and missed my return flight. Some crap for brains decided to put his car on cruise control and get on the roof and car surf on the interstate. The car crashed, and he died, and there was a multi-car pileup. I found out watching the news in the airport when I finally got there about an hour after. It took over 3 hours to go 20 or so miles. This guy not only wins for the biggest idiot, but he upset thousands too. Next story. My mom said she knew this kid who was dared to lick some exposed wire on a utility pole or something. Not sure of the details, but this was China in the 60s, so I'm sure things weren't very safe. Even in the 90s when I was born, exposed wires in the home were still a common thing. Anyway, dude got electrocuted. It's 2026 and I have exposed wires in my house. I didn't realize we were supposed to get rid of them. Next story. No way this even gets seen, but what the heck? Just learned about this in the OSHA safety class I'm taking for work. Construction site. Guy goes down into an underground space to do something, doesn't come back. Someone goes to check on him, doesn't come back. A third guy goes to check on the first two, doesn't come back. A fourth guy goes to check on the first three, and when he doesn't come back in, when they stop sending guys and they start calling emergency services. The space they were working was full of H2S, hydrogen sulfide, aka swamp gas. Killed each of them before they had time to figure out that something was wrong. Next story. I read about a woman who was trying to back into a spot in a parking garage. Her husband was behind the car, guiding her. She had her head out of the window to look back, but was too close to the wall. When she put her foot on the gas, she decapitated herself, and then backed into her husband. I think about this more than I should. If it's a true story, it's awful. Next story. This one always sticks in my brain. A woman was going through the drive-thru and somehow dropped her cash or card. So she cracked her door to open and grab it without putting her car in park. While she was leaning out, somehow the car rolled forward and she died of blunt force trauma to her head. I will never open my door to get something from outside my car at the drive-thru without both putting the car in park and putting on the emergency brake ever since. Next story. I just heard of one where a pro skydiver jumped without his parachute because he was wearing a backpack with similar weight to a parachute. My neighbor used to be at a drug house and this lady came to get some drugs, and when she went to leave, assuming high, she somehow managed to run herself over with her own car. Her leg bone was sticking out and everything. The car slowly rolled up someone else's lawn and tapped their house. 6 months later, a shed in the backyard of the same house exploded and the person in it had died. It also managed to catch the actual house on fire, but nobody died in the house. The house is non-livable now, so no more drugs. Next story. In an episode of the old 1000 Ways to Die show, an adult star who specialized in the butt arts was having a procedure done to tighten the skin of and around her hole. However, she had ignored the instructions for fasting, and as such had some residual gas left in her system from food she had eaten way too recently. She was put fully under for the procedure, and so her body was completely relaxed. Just as the doctor touched the cauterizing pen to her, she farted. A flame ignited which blew back toward the doctor. I can only ever picture a lighter and a can of hairspray kind of scenario who breathed in the flame and fried his lungs. I believe the doctor died on the spot. If any of that show has ever been debunked, I apologize, I am unaware of it, and that story was passed off as 100% factual, as hard as it may be to believe, which is why I'm adding this little disclaimer anyway. I would love it if that whole show was debunked. I don't know why they gave me this script, guys. I'm more of an upbeat, uplifting story kind of guy. Those are my favorites. And that show scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. All my friends always wanted to watch it. They found it amusing and silly. Maybe I'm just overly sensitive to it. I have no idea. But I saw it when I was way too young. And I gotta tell you, I've been afraid of dying ever since. In what way? It doesn't matter. Apparently there's thousands. Next story. My very good friend's idiot brother was playing with his gun. His girlfriend told him to stop. He said, "No, it has a safety, it can't go off," and put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger. It was a Glock. His brother bought him the gun as a gift at his request. He would have bought himself otherwise. I'm still mad at him for that and what he put his mother and brother through. They'll never be the same. Next story. There was a girl I knew from college and we both worked at the same restaurant. She caught her boyfriend fooling around with another girl, got drunk because she was so torn up over it. The boyfriend was texting her trying to fix the situation. She texted him that she was going out to find someone to hook up with to get back at him. He told her she was obviously drunk and don't do it. She said, "F you," and went out and drove her car into the back of a stopped semi-truck on the interstate. It took the whole top of her car off, decapitated her. I went to her closed casket funeral even. It was dumb and it was sad all at the same time. Next story. I used to work in a mine. It turns out one day some genius decided to steal copper wires from the mine, wires that are on the surface, not in the mine. His accomplice must have forgotten to turn off the power because the guy was electrocuted to death. The interesting thing is that he tried to cut the wire while squatting, and when the electricity entered his body, it exited through the crotch. The guy was found with his privates literally blown off. Next story. Woman went bungee jumping on a work team day out. Simple setup, no platform, just climb over the small railing on a bridge that the cord was tied to and then jump. She had partaken in a copious amount of drugs that day, particularly PCP. While waiting her turn, she believed she could either fly or land safely on the river's skin, so ran to the railing and launched herself over with no cord attached. She felt invincible, but alas, was not. It was one of the top posts in the early days of Reddit on one of the banned subs that showed live leak or whatever videos of people dying. Drugs are no bueno. Next story. Here in Pensacola back in the 90s, some tourist teens were playing elevator tag in the high-rise hotels on the beach. Apparently, you climb up through the ceiling axis in the elevator car and you ride on top of it as the elevator car next to it passes. Then they would jump from one to the other. One kid jumped too far and fell off the side of the elevator, and it wedged his head against the wall and the elevator ground to a halt. He died. Okay, this can't be real, right? Is this a sitcom or a show or something? This is like a reference to a show I'm missing, right? There's no way this was a game or a thing that anybody has ever played or thought about doing. What? Next story. Gonna get buried, but I rarely have anything to contribute to these kinds of threads, so I'm gonna make a comment anyway. My girlfriend's co-worker's boyfriend was partying with some of his friends and doing some drugs. The next day he got up before everyone else, and as a joke, he thought it would be funny to try and prank his roommate by pointing a gun at his face, waking him up and pulling the trigger thinking the gun wasn't loaded. Well, the gun was loaded, and he killed his roommate and is now serving time in prison. The level of stupidity is unfathomable. Next story. The British kids show Horrible Histories has a segment called Stupid Deaths I'd highly recommend. My personal favorite is a man who died in a blackout during the Blitz. He was on a train that stopped to maintain the blackout, but assumed it was his stop. So he got off the train and fell off a railway bridge to his death. Next story. From the Fortean Times, there was once a teenager/young man who worked for a catering company that also served at events. And the end of the evening, the servers and waiters would regularly compete to see who could eat the most leftover cake in the shortest time. The dude stuffed so much cake in his mouth all at once that he choked and died. I often think about his mom and how she must have felt explaining to others the utter stupidity of her offspring that brought about his ridiculous and untimely demise. This is genuinely like one of my biggest fears. I live alone and I eat way too much, way too fast at the same time, and if I choke, nobody's there for me. It's scary, dude. When I first started living by myself, I was on a liquid diet for like 2 weeks. I mean, I got over it because I like cake and I like, food, but the fear is there, and now it's back in my head. Next story. I know of a man who was dressed up as a Tyrannosaurus Rex for Halloween. He tripped over his tail, fell down a flight of stairs, and broke his neck. His son even laughed when he was telling me that the ambulance men were giving him chest compressions that kept triggering a sensor in the suit that would let out a big roar. What a way to go. Your whole family's just standing around laughing at you. Next story. I read a Darwin Award once about some guy who used to be an explosives expert. He found some old TNT sticks in a shed on his property and they were sweating nitroglycerin, so he decided the best way to dispose of them was to bury them. Nitroglycerin is super dangerous to move around as it can explode. So anyway, he digs a big hole, very carefully puts the sticks in there and buries them. All goes perfectly. Hey, job done. He then stamps the mound down to flatten it and blows himself straight to heck. The TNT is covered in nitroglycerin. Isn't that like a big plot point of the show Lost at some point? Is that why that's in my memory? I could be wrong. Also, potential spoilers. But anyways, guys, that concludes our little stories of stupid and unfortunately sad ways to go out. A lot of people like these kind of stories and they marvel and they can take them not too seriously. Me, I either have to make jokes to hide behind it with comedy or it's too real and it hits me in the soul. Somebody texted me a second ago while I was recording and it made me jump. I'm a freaking wimp, let it be known. That being said, if you guys have any stories that you would like to share, feel free to drop them down below in the comments. I probably won't marvel at them, I'll be honest with you, but we can share together as such. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me, and we will see you in the next one. Hopefully it's a little bit more upbeat. For my sake, I'm sure you guys are having fun.